Welcome back to Closed Circuit Sports. I'm Drew Goldman, and I will be your host for the foreseeable future. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Hove. Oh, I can do better than that. We can do better than this. The production quality is increasing quickly. Uh, we're making moves. I've been saying that for a minute, but it's all coming together now. There's a lot of people who want my money at this point because I have my first proper. Eh, that's not true. I have my first proper career path, not my first big boy job. I've had a handful of those now. I'm on a bit of a path with survey, and I can't thank the company that employs me enough for giving me the opportunity they gave me. No experience required, no bad habits brought in, just hard work and eager to learn and yada yada. But about 2 years later, a little bit of cheddar in the bank, thanks to family letting me stay with them, hence the basement. I'm 28 years old. I'm a land survey instrument technician from Indianapolis. And I never thought I would be racing pro karts, ever. I did not ever think that I would be racing pro karts. Yet, life has a way of letting you know it has its own plan. Uh, Finances, no matter how together they might be at the moment, are not yet in the place where I can race cars. I could potentially afford the smallest kind, but I couldn't afford to run it. You know what I mean? I would need to be renting it out, which would terrify me and probably wouldn't end well. So, what we're going to do instead is keep going baby bites at a time as best we can. That probably means we're going to run a 206 season next year unless something special happens. But those kind of emails are now in the process of going out. We're doing what we can now. I am a very average sim racer. Correction. I am an above average sim racer, but my mentality, I think, is what sets me apart. I've been approaching the sim as though it is preparation for real world racing because I do want my SCCA competition license someday. And yes, I could afford that. But the way that you get it, unfortunately, seems to matter in the world of racing. The school that you get it from, yeah, whether it's connected to a racing series, that seems to be a big aspect of whether it launches anything. So, your debut season in race cars indicates where you're headed, because that's what you just poured however much money into. Uh, this is not a sport that kids should be partaking in. The fact that so many children are partaking in this sport these days, I think, is a testament to. That's a discussion for another day. I wish more people could be involved in racing, but I also understand that the vehicles required are expensive machines, prone to failure, often in need of repair. So we're going to keep on driving other people's shit for now, for as long as we can. Ownership seems to be as much of a pride thing as racing them is. So we'll see how soon that ends up being in the cards at any level. Although I would very much like to. I'd really, really like to own a sim arcade someday. That's a business goal. I know those would be money pits as well, though. That's the thing. Like I'd have to find a way to make that profitable, and that's tough. I guess you'd have to sell it as like the experience of proper racing. You're trying to prep people and trying to give them information, and I don't know. Maybe if you set it up as like a pro sim for the public instead of it being a racing arcade. I'm thinking out loud. Anyway, I recently started a company. It's called Golden Goal Media. And basically, the idea is that I'm going to sell sponsorship through this company. Because running it through your personal account is a great way to end up in the office at the IRS. Managing it through a company means that you can pay other companies for services that you were paid for transparently with contracts in a way that personal accounts are simply not designed to do. Do your research. This is not in any way financial advice. But anyway, I've been thinking about doing that shit for a number of years. And basically, the arithmetic that I've done is that if I don't want to race karts forever, which I don't, and I do want to build toward racing cars professionally, which I do, then this is a smart investment. Because running a company, believe it or not, the way that you can do it these days, majority virtually, it costs less to run a company for a year than to run one event in the most approachable auto racing class. Formula 600 has seemed like the goal since I was 18 or 19. And when I say the goal, I mean, well, I wasn't born wealthy and I don't have a karting resume. So, I'm going to have to pay for it myself. And Formula 600 are basically the smallest Indy cars, the smallest sports racers, and the biggest go-karts all at the same time. They are a single-seater, mid-engine, super sport motorcycle power plant. Nearly a solid axle in the back. In the front, it's like they call them elastomers, but they're these pucks that they use as the suspension because it's so compact a chassis that they didn't want to use springs, but they also didn't want to use a solid axle like an actual go-kart because it would have been way too rough a ride on some of these tracks, especially for how wide the wheelbase is. It needed a suspension of some kind. But these little go-karts, it's unfortunate, but I mean, for real though. 250cc two-stroke twins are known as supercarts. Those run on go-kart tires, which cost about 250 a set. 250 a set. Of four. Fronts and backs. Fronts and rears. Whatever, however you want to say it. F600, the tires are about $1,000 a set. Because it's a car. It's a 1,000-pound car that runs with a 600cc four-cylinder, four-stroke motorcycle engine behind you. So it's set up like a race car with paddle shifters instead of it being a go-kart with the sequential where you're just one lever on the side up or towards you is up and away is down. Which is a dirt bike engine. It's still a motorcycle for real. That's a license that I meant to get this summer and didn't get because I'm still in this basement. Car's paid off. We're out of debt. Not that this matters, but it does. For our ability to go and make things happen, this matters. We got options. We got plans. Things are in the works. But basically, uh, I'm in the process now of asking people to support me on a campaign through some form of Formula 4, which is a big ask, like a legitimately gigantic ask, like a 5 times my damn salary ish ask. But the beauty of it is that we're talking about company marketing dollars. We are talking about money that is cheaper to a company than it is to a human being. Because a company at that level is looking for an investment of a different kind than one more hire, one more field crew, one more tech, one more salesman, one more repair guy. That's not going to generate them more revenue. It's going to give them another person to try and give enough work to. Everyone seems to be competing for attention these days, including me. Full awareness. But there are ways to earn it. Racing has always been one of those spaces that simply draws eyes. I was watching the karting championship the other day. It was a good show. It's fun, man. Karting is crazy. When you think about it, and you think about the speeds, and you think about the weights, and you think about the fact that there's no seatbelts, and you think about all the exposed heated parts, uh, karting is an extreme ass sport. And I'm not gonna say it's as crazy as motorcycles, whether motocross or any of that. They're all different. They're all different kinds of crazy. Ovals are their own kind of crazy. Road racing is its own kind of crazy. Sprint karts, sprint cars. Um, Two different things. I kid you not. Legends cars. Those guys are. It's goofy, man. It's dope though. Like I'm glad it exists. It's just not my game. I've tried it in iRacing. I've been an iRacing member since 2020 with a G29 and a desk. And then we got the Quest. And then we got the FGT Lite. And then we got the Moza. Direct Drive is a different world from video game controllers. They're not the same thing. If you've never played a proper simulator before, and you have any kind of friend or any kind of establishment near you that offers time in a direct drive simulator, give it a whirl. And then come back and tell me that you think you could go really fast in the 500 if they just gave you a car. Ah, the ignorance with which people talk about auto racing astonishes me. Talent is involved, yes. Skill is paramount, though. There is no substitute for skill. Lewis Hamilton is Lewis Hamilton because of hours and hours and hours of practice karting. Race cars, especially single seaters, are just giant go karts. That's why everyone has to go through karting first, because you have to be able to pilot a really fast, really little, really light machine through very narrow spaces carefully, quickly, and without hurting yourself or others before they drop you into something 5 times as expensive and twice as dangerous. Just off the sheer weight more than anything else. The weight is what makes it dangerous. If you've ever watched MotoGP, if you've ever watched MotoGP or Moto America or World Superbike or any kind of superbike race, American Superbike, I don't care. When they crash, most of the time, they bail out. There's a reason for that. It's way more dangerous to be attached to the heavy thing than it is to be away from the heavy thing when it hits something else that's harder than it. Um, it will break into more pieces than it is made of, and you are inside it. Or attached to it, however you want to look at it if you're thinking about the bike. Not ideal. Not ideal for the pilot. So, you want to attack the discipline that you feel most confident in, and for me, the dream has always been road racing. It's the one I have the most starts in iRacing. It is the one I have the most success in iRacing. I have mostly gotten faster in iRacing. I have approached the pace. I am approaching the pace. I'm a couple seconds off. I am not one of the aliens. I haven't been trying to become one. I'm about to. Because I'm pretty damn frustrated with how long it's been since I had an honest-to-God win. But the reason for that is because I keep on taking all the other kinds. I'm moving up through ranks. I'm moving up through points. I'm racing against better and better racers every time. I keep on making A splits, top splits. But I'm just good enough to make that split and get cooked, right? Not ideal. We're close though. And some of these kids are aliens. But I've gotten into this mindset of like, there's always going to be someone faster than you. It's the internet. The internet's a big place. Trying to be the fastest guy on the internet is a big ask. But someone is. Even if it's Max, someone is. Even if it's Yarno, someone is. If it's Michaela Constantini, a coach of mine, someone's that guy. And I'm not saying it could be me, because it's a big racing population online of people who have more time to attack it than me. But what I have been trying to build the skill set of, God help me, is adapting quickly to what I'm given. You will be able to see that in the K1 Grand Prix videos, which will be coming out soon. This was the most approachable, the most affordable, the most attackable racing championship that I could find in my region this year. So having missed the January event because I had forgotten about it until after the first week of January, I ain't gonna lie. So down an event, and a very big event, there were apparently a lot of people who went, and there were a lot of championship points on the line, because the format for that championship is that you score a point for every car that you finish in front of. So if you finish second to last, you get 1 point for showing up and 1 point for beating one cart. So the more people come, the more points are on the table. And the smaller the event is, the fewer points are on the table. We're playing that game now. We've gone for the past 8 races in a row, and we've done pretty much better every time. Maybe not every time, but on an upward trend, on a significant upward trend. The expectations have changed of lap times, of consistency, of racecraft, and of defense. The physicality has increased a little bit. I'm mildly disappointed in myself for that. I'd like to drive as clean as possible, but in a race series like K1, where it's rental carts, essentially, they find the best ones, they isolate the best ones, they put them all together for you as best they can, and they try and get them all to be even, but they're not. Everybody's making what they can out of lemonade. It's a lemonade contest, basically. That's the best way to put it. Um, you might get the cart with no brakes, but a really good motor. You might get the cart with both good brakes and a good gas pedal, but it steers crooked. Whatever that means for that particular cart. It might have a slightly a slightly loose front left wheel. It might have more oversteer to the right than to the left. You have to adjust and make what you can out of the situation. That is motor racing. That is the universal sport of motor racing, is getting the most you can out of what you're given. Because you're not always going to have a winning car, but you can always make yourself proud by the way you compete. Um, I think that's within reach. I think that's within reach. Because I've put way too much time into these damn racing games, taking it too serious too often. Changing the challenge, changing the difficulty. At this point, I know more about this sport than most of the others put together. And I'm a sports fan. But I know I am not one of these mechanics. I'm not one of these gearheads. I was at the track the other week testing a kart at Whiteland, and it was a great time. I wish I had taken video. I kept that one for me. It was a fun day. Maybe next time I'll bring out the hat cam. I'll put it in the helmet, and we'll go out on track at Whiteland. But that's going to be a handful of videos down the line, let me tell you. It will, however, probably come out before the AEKC video. We will get into that later. That is the big plan, the big kahuna, the big way that we're going to end the year, and probably start the year when it comes to videos. But anyway, we were testing a 206 at Whiteland. And bro rattled off the specs. Yes. I guess I was rambling anyway. The big plan is Whiteland 206, Whiteland KA 100. From what I've heard, Newcastle is not as friendly a community to become a part of. But we're going to figure that out. We're going to see who's approachable. We're going to see if anybody's approachable. Or if we can skip that community altogether. Because, I know how NASCAR operate. And that's not how you learn. I know how professional teams treat each other. And that's not how you learn. That's a great way to bake some bad habits into your repertoire. And I can't afford those. I go everywhere with an open mind, trying to learn about what I'm driving. Both of my tests, I was about 3 seconds away from race pace, which is findable. It's not fun to find, but it's findable. Uh, it is fun to find. Who the fuck am I kidding? In The Sims as well, I'm about 3 seconds away from the aliens. What is good news is that I'm hitting the F1 benchmarks that I keep setting for myself, so that's fun. We've gotten to a very impressive level with the AI. A depressingly impressive AI. We going places. Now on a date, we going places. Oh, it's gonna be an interesting end of the year. Today's September 15th. 3 more K1 Grand Prix. to see whether we can finish in the top 10 of that championship. I'm hoping we can. Um, the debut event of the AEKC. They have two exhibitions happening, one in October, one in November. The first in October will be held at Whiteland Raceway Park in Whiteland, Indiana, which I think I will be going and watching and filming, thankfully, because I need to see what that mess looks like before I jump in myself. Too expensive. Too expensive to do two events. I really would have liked to, but if I only get one, it better be Daytona. Um, unfortunately, it will not. Unfortunately, it will not be the road course. I thought it would be. It will not. Although they are 30 horsepower carts, 35 to be exact, 36. I think it's 36. Um, these electric carts, they wonder about their capacity. So they're going to be running on the sprint track. Can't be mad. Still in the infield of Daytona International Speedway. And we will see what kind of video we can provide. The cam box is not allowed. Can you tell? Can you tell I'm upset? Not happy, Bob. Not happy. Anyway, we're going to figure something out there. Because that's a really, really expensive race to not even get pictures to prove it happened. I would like to get to watch it back in the future. Because, yeah, too heckin' cool. It'd be too cool, man. So, that's locked in. That's part of Daytona Kart Week in December. I have never raced a 30 horsepower kart before. Am I in over my head? I sure the hell hope not. Uh, we're gonna find out though. um, quickly too, like at like 80 miles an hour quick, maybe 90. Probably 80 though. Um, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be really fun. I hope we finish. We better heckin' finish. Um, what a crazy game. It's a fun game. Only because there's so much on the line, though. I used to love paintball. I still love paintball. It ain't like that, though. Excuse me. You don't, you can't. They're not the same. They're just not the same. Paintball is fun. Racing is electrifying. There are very few things that are electrifying. Skydiving, I've heard. Never done it. I don't really particularly want to. Racing. Then there's a couple. I'm going to say fighting. Because fear is pretty electrifying. Maybe paintball. I'll give paintball some credit. I don't know how many other things. Performing. Performing is probably electrifying. But there's not much that really warrants it. This does. This is something I've been passionate about since a child. This is something I've been told would not happen since I was a child. I'm the oldest of three, two very hardworking, modest journalists for my entire upbringing. I am glad that they are doing so well for themselves now. Uh, it wasn't like that always. um, I always knew I was gonna have to do it myself, but when the numbers became plain, there was a bit of a crisis in my mind, trying to find a way to make it happen. Trying to do it myself, trying not to do it the traditional way, trying to ego, ego in the way. Had to swallow that. Had to get to work. Had to put my head down and learn a whole bunch of stuff I didn't think I would ever need to use that I am now using every day. Work is hard. Work is relentless. Full-time work is not participation based. Clock in, clock out doesn't get you anywhere in this life. It keeps you still. You got to attack, or you're not going to get anywhere. So, once I found an opportunity that showed me some kind of upward trajectory that was attainable, rather than showing me a plan that had a very specific endpoint, a very specific ceiling that either you or someone else is going to get. And it's going to come down to which one of you is willing to spend more of your time doing this job. Survey doesn't seem to be that way. Survey seems to be kind of a technology information based trade, which kind of tickles my fancy. Uh, as far as anything that makes money goes, it seems kind of in a sweet spot for me. There's some physical requirements. I never wanted to be stuck in a cubicle. There's some travel required. I didn't want to go in a suit every day. There's some gross stuff required, but there's also a lot of perks. There is some mental work required, but my brain isn't always mush at the end of the day. There are some times where you're out there on your own, but there are other times where you have to be nice to strangers. If you go into the courthouse and have to get documents from the lady behind the counter who has had as little interaction from people as you have today. um, so be nice, right? Like, particularly working with the guy that I'm working with, it's really hard not to notice how mean certain people like to be for no reason. Just as a result of how their life has gone for them. Just inflicting themselves on the world around them. And I, for one, can't stand it. Inflict positivity on the world around you. If there's any one sentence that's going to get taken from this essay, let that be it. Inflict positivity on the world around you, not negativity. There's enough of that going around. Positivity is as contagious as negativity is, in my opinion, because you can go into a conversation sad, and if you're not committed enough to that concept, you can leave the conversation happy if it's the right person with the right intentions, saying the right things. So, anyway, racing is a beautiful game when looked at the right way, when looked at as a community. It's a beautiful thing. When looked at as an arena, gets a little spooky. It doesn't need to be. I don't think it needs to be. I think it can be an awesome way to cross-pollinate businesses. I think there is a lot of opportunity on the table in the motorsport industry in the 21st century. I know that everybody's talking about the golden era being behind us because we're moving toward electric cars. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the videos They're faster. What are we supposed to do with that besides race them? So they're doing it. Next, not next year, but the year after next, Formula One and its new regulations, I don't think it's going to be slower for long. They're going to go 50% electric and 50% combustion. And the 50% that will be combustion will be completely renewable fuel. This will not be the end of the world. IndyCar has been fully sustainable for years. They run on ethanol. It's part of why the strategy is what it is. Um, in the sense of race laps and how often you have to pit. Uh, yes, it burns off faster. Yes, it is sustainable. Yes, it is the reason they have to do pit stops in IndyCar as often as they do. But yeah, I think it makes the racing probably a little bit better. Gives the pit crew more to do. Um, I hope they bring back refueling in F1 only because there's 20 guys in an F1 pit stop. Add a job. We got 3 men on each tire. One guy steadying each side of the car at the cockpit, kind of holding it steady, and a jackman at the back and a jackman at the front. Hang on. We got 2 backup jackmen in case something happens to the primary front or back. I just looked this up. It's insane. It's insane. And they don't even have to refuel the car. No wonder it's 2 seconds. Got 20 guys doing it. Bring back refueling. Anyway, I don't know why they got rid of it. But with ethanol, as opposed to methanol, which is rocket fuel and burns invisible and is terrifying, I think we'd be okay. I think we'd probably be okay. There might still be fires, but like, there's fireproof gear and care should be used when refueling race cars. Anyway, discussion for another day. You see how easily I am sidetracked. The Daytona prototypes, the Le Mans prototypes, are hybrids. Formula E is very fast now. They weren't. They are now. They are currently on Gen 3, and Gen 3 is pretty heckin' quick. Tops out at 200 miles an hour, apparently, if you take it to the right track. This is what they say. In R Factor 2, I've gotten it as fast as 175, which is pretty impressive in its own right. It was like 10 seconds slower around Daytona, the road course, than Formula One, which I thought was very impressive because that's a fully electric car. I know the sound is irritating. Everyone hates the sound. This is universal. I don't know anyone who has said, I just love the way those electric cars sound. I don't know what we can do about that without doing something fake over the top of it. So we're going to see what solutions end up being developed. If they end up playing some kind of resonant frequency over the top of it to try and lessen the whine in the context of noise pollution, if they can do some kind of frequency research in that department to try and minimize the drawback that people feel. Because when you listen, when you watch Formula E, once you hear someone call it Formula Re, you can't unhear it. It's all they do. They all the way around that track. They're just little whiny carts. They sound like carts. I know They're getting over 130 miles an hour, up to 150, upwards of that at the right tracks. Um, but I also know that for them to go a full race distance, you have to set up a layout that is tighter and less raceable than most F1 road courses. So it's got a lot of power. Yeah, it's like 450 horsepower, which is awesome. But the Plaid has 1,000. I know it's heavier, but the Plaid is no longer even the fastest electric car. There's the Rimac Nevera. There's the Lucid Air. Sapphire, I think. I think the Sapphire is the one that's faster than the Plaid. But anyway, I'm excited, for one, to see where it's all headed. Because I do think the times are going to keep going down. I don't think there's anything wrong with electricity being integrated into the world of racing. I do not think there is some sanctity of the combustion engine that must be upheld. I'm not an old head in that way. I'm just saying, as a guy that likes good music and knows when I hear something that sounds like nails on a chalkboard, um, we gotta do something about that. Because, like, the V10s are kind of divisive. Some people love the V10 sound, some people think it sounds screamy. I, for one, love it. But Formula E is very close to sounding like an airplane taking off. We'll get there eventually. But we got to figure out some kind of sound solution for that thing. Anyway, the world racing pyramid is out of whack because it is no longer profitable. It's not. There's no one really investing the amount of money into it and seeing that profit on the other side. Except people who are making business moves behind the scenes. People who are targeting certain series for certain demographics and audiences. People who are targeting certain industries. There's there's absolutely focus that is happening, but it isn't everybody, and you can tell who's who. You can tell who's there to spend their money, and you can tell who's there to make it. And the ones who are there to make it are few and far between. I hope to be one of that number, but the kayfabe of racing, gulp, is becoming pretty clear to me. There's a lot that I know. There's a lot that I know that I don't know, but I don't yet know what I don't know, and I don't know how to ask the question yet. So, we're going to have to find out how to ask the questions. Um, we've got quotes from race teams, but I understand that we're not allowed to put them all out there. I've got information about car setups that I know I'm not allowed to share that would make for good content. Um, but it's information that I learned as a part of Team VRS that I could face legal. I signed the terms and conditions saying that I can't share their proprietary information. That includes their setups. So I have to be careful about that as best I can moving forward because that's the right thing to do, and I do not wish to incur the ire of a team who I work with and enjoy. Um, Team VRS is the esports team. It's a coaching platform, data packs, hot laps, setups. You can be a part of it for a small fee, and it'll make you faster. That's the best way to say it. I have gotten faster. I went from being at the bottom of the bottom to being at the middle of the bottom to being at the top of the bottom. I went from the top of the bottom with the Moza, where I was making middle splits and competing in bottom splits. I got the Moza, went from the bot. I had it. Went from the top of the bottom to the bottom of the middle to the middle of the middle to the top of the middle. I am now at the bottom of the top. As it comes to sim racing, I think I'm at the bottom of the top. That's a funny ass sentence, I know, but that's about where we're sitting right now. We know there are weaknesses. We know that there are strengths. We know that there are things that we know. We know way better than many. We have good habits now. We have car control now. We have an actual driving style instead of just understeering into every corner by braking too late and managing that understeer and calling that race car driving. That's what I thought it was until I started doing it. I was like, oh, you mean every time I hear those tires, it's a halfway mistake? Except in karts. In karts, you have to use the tires, their fullest potential. In car driving, you have to manage the tires over the duration of the race because it's normally a pretty long race. Karts, it's pretty quick. And everybody is sending it. So you have to too. And in the cars, it is that way as well. But it's very easy to overdo it. Run your own race. Learn how to send it carefully. Send it in a way that doesn't initiate contact or receive any contact. Because contact is contact. That's one of the best things iRacing has taught me, is that contact is contact. Like, it's not anybody's fault. It's just a bad thing that happens. Sometimes it's very clear whose fault it is, right? But in real life, I think you can, generally speaking, trust racers not to use their car as a weapon because they understand the investment that it is. And that they will only hurt the outcome of their own race by doing so. Which is why the NASCAR thing was so alarming when it happened with Austin Dillon. Even to me, as a Formula guy, as an Indy guy, alarming to see that rewarded and then only halfway punished because they didn't revoke the win. They revoked his playoff berth, but he still gets that win on his record, which is weird. At K1, the electric karting place, the rental place, during the GP, if somebody makes a dirty move, if somebody spins somebody, and they get passed by 3 karts before they stop the race, they pause the race and they put them back where they belong. NASCAR? Come on, man. In the Cup Series, they didn't go, okay, look, Joey comes in first. Denny comes in second. Austin Dillon does not finish the race, and the rest of the field finishes as follows. That's all that would have needed to happen to change everything about NASCAR and make it fit back into the overall world racing pyramid. because it's a part of it and it's way further down the list than NASCAR fans think it is. NASCAR earns about as many super license points, if I understand it correctly, as Formula 4 in any country. Or, I believe it was less than Formula 3. I believe it was less than Formula 3 Continental. I think it was 15. If you win the Cup Series, you get 15 super license points. You have to be a 3-time Cup Series champion to be eligible for a super license. And I don't mean 3 times. I mean 3-peat. Because you need 40 plus points in the past 3 seasons of FIA World Racing Competition. And the super license is your ticket. That's the only way that you get in. That's the only way that you're able to buy an F1 seat. I wish it wasn't like this, but this is the game. How do you get in? Bring money. That's how you get in. You have to be able to contribute to the team. And money can be eyes these days. Attention is expensive. Money can be partnerships, deals. Like if you're actually pretty good at setting things up, which I hope to be, you can move forward in the game without necessarily winning as many races as one would like to. Because then you get to a level where you then want to compete. Like I said, I never wanted to be a pro karter, but I always wanted to be a racing driver. So I gotta get through these. I hate that I'm looking at it like that, but I gotta show that I can compete with them to show I have pace. Cause then you go get your license, and then people go, oh, he's a racing driver. Look at that. Until then, they think you're a gamer who takes it too seriously because technically they ain't wrong. But that's a bummer because that undersells this to a drastic extent. I have too many iRacing starts for as few wins as I have. It's because there's always someone there faster than you. And they don't always make a mistake, especially if you keep getting better and keep racing against people who are about on par with you again. Because that sliding scale moves up, you're going to probably finish about where you were finishing before again. It's very predictable. It's also very frustrating. But it lets you know this game is bigger than you. And you have to attack it the right way. If you pour your whole heart into it, the way that life requires of all of us, maybe you get rewarded. Even if you don't have the war chest required, you might still be able to acquire the pace in non-traditional ways. And then refine that with the time that you have on the track. And then refine that with the time you have on the track. So, I said I was going to introduce myself and I ended up rambling for a half hour, but if you don't know me by now, we'll talk more later. Like I said, I work full time. I've been an Uber driver. I've been a delivery driver for Jimmy John's and Papa John's. Jimmy was more fun, but Papa paid better. Jimmy had a better team. Papa was more laid back, more relaxed. Too slow, though. I felt like I was wasting time. Uber was the most fun. You had the most agency with Uber. There was no home base, but you could also end up very far from home, which was not fun. That career came to an end, or I knew I had to change it up when I got carjacked back in 2020, October of 2020. I had gone back to it too quickly. The world was still too desperate. I got carjacked. I got shot at. I'm glad I knew how to slide. Bang, fix is actually what you hear when that shit cracks overhead. I promise you I heard all three. Um, so I knew I couldn't drive professionally in that capacity anymore without carrying. And while I am a red-blooded American male who does enjoy a good bang, um, I don't want to have to carry for work, man. Work should be work. War should be war. I hope the two don't meet, but we'll see what the future holds. I never had to carry. I never grew up in a family that liked that concept. Not against it, just not from that world, not from that community. So, when I live on my own, yes, probably. A necessity in a constitutional carry state, in my opinion. But luckily, they missed. We got back in a car. We logged back into Uber, and the world kept spinning. But now I was scared at work. Like, really? I was always nervous about something like that happening, but I was more nervous about getting hit by another car than getting hit by people in the car. Um, so I took another weird job. I was sick and tired of customer service that had drained my soul for a couple of years after school. Um, Doing that and delivery driving, and then I picked up Uber, and then Uber became the tempting thing because it was like the flexibility, the freedom, the not having to schedule anything, the not having to plan anything. Just get up and go, get it done. It was very fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. While it lasted almost 3,000 successful trips, I think I can say I'm a veteran driver because I have at least 1,000. I'm gonna say closer to three Jimmy John's deliveries, probably in the realm of 1,000 Papa John's deliveries, several hundred Uber Eats deliveries. I'm a driver. And I always liked city driving, and I liked that it was never the same route. And the two games that I grew up on when it came to racing as a kid, it was Need for Speed, of course. The first was Hot Pursuit 2 on the GameCube. Then it was Most Wanted, which set the standard, raised the bar. But the one that I kept coming back to for years after it was old was Burnout Paradise. It was Most Wanted, but no cops. It was just fun. Point A, point B. Get there, tiger. Like, no shepherding down the. It was very cool. It was unique. It was different. Life is a little bit like that. Uber is especially like that. um, but I didn't want to put the people who love me through that again. So I don't have a much safer job now. It's still pretty dangerous. It's just dangerous in different ways. And we can talk about that a different day. But I would much prefer this career to survey. But in the meantime, you got to make it where you can get it. So we're going to keep on sending out the story. We're going to keep on trying to get better. And we're going to keep on checking in as often as we have updates. Because I should have started this sooner and I'm paying for it now. But we'll see how far we can take it. Because this is the dream. Peace and love. Positivity to you. We'll talk to you soon. This has been Closed Circuit Sports. Golden Goal Media. I'm True Gold. Peace.